A while ago, we talked to you here on North Dakota Today about a bison fan who climbed to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Quite the feat, especially for a man in his 50s. I don't know who wrote that. 50's young. But it seemed like nothing would slow him down until he recently tested positive for COVID-19. And joining us today, we have Lee Hodel back with us on North Dakota Today. Lee, great to have you back.
Thanks, Lisa. It's a marked difference from the last time we met.
This is incredible. And I know our news department just did a story with you. And I thought, well, we need to follow up with you as well. You've always kind of been our go-to person for running and for marathons. Health has always played a major part in your life. You just ran a virtual marathon not so long ago. And then COVID-19.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I ran a virtual marathon because all of our races are canceled for the year. And this thing just hit me on a Thursday, a week before Thanksgiving. Swept over me in 3 hours, and it was not your normal flu. I could tell. My daughter and I both went in, tested positive immediately, and I was down and out starting from that point on.
So let's talk a little bit about how good you felt before that. I mean, you have to be in like the best shape of your life, really.
I felt great. If you've ever run on a treadmill, it takes forever. So to run a sub-4 on a treadmill by yourself in the early morning hours, I felt great. Absolutely felt great. And this thing, like I said, I never, ever expected this to hit me like this. And if I ever got, and I assumed that this virus is going to, it's not really a matter if it's going to infect or affect people, it's when. And I just assumed it would just be very mild. And it roared right over the top of me.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about your symptoms specifically. What was so difficult?
Shortness of breath. Really quickly, high fever, body aches, cramps, pretty much everything except the rash on the feet, fatigue. When I went in on that Thursday, I tested positive. By Friday, I was into urgent care for my low oxygen levels at that point. So they put me on some low-grade steroids at that point and sent me home. About 4 or 5 days later, right around Thanksgiving Day, it increased even worse. By then, I had already been diagnosed with corona pneumonia and COVID lung, and was put on steroids that, at that point, the steroids that I'm taking right now on a daily basis are 3 times the level you would take if you were climbing a mountain and suffered acute mountain sickness, MES. So, yeah, it's been tough. The thing that I've come to learn from this virus is that it's very indiscriminate. And that's what the North Dakota Department of Health will tell you. That's what all the county folks that have been in touch with me, the doctors and nurses who have worked with me, and they've just been saints and angels, is that everybody is affected by this virus. It hits your body differently. They cannot come up with a complete, clear model. You can come up with a model in terms of who's died, how many have died, and what age groups and cohorts and things like that, and those that are hospitalized. But the ones that are sent home and that are dealing with it like I am still, it's an anomaly. It's still unfolding.
So how do you feel right now? I feel lucky that we're able to visit with you, but I can tell you're not 100%.
No, I'm pretty exhausted. I think the COVID fog is probably the worst. It's the lack of oxygen. My oxygen levels are pretty stabilized right now at about 92, and it's just the fact that you have no concentration. You'll hear this from a lot of patients. The ones that are outsourced, they're not going into the hospitals, which is good. We really can't tax our hospital services right now. We're so close to getting those vaccines, and we just need to do whatever it is we possibly can do to stay out of those hospitals. But for me, it's fatigue. I couldn't tell you what day it is. I couldn't tell you what time it is. I have to constantly look to see what it is. My concentration level is pretty low. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah, especially for you, because you're used to being so active. Now, in addition to what you're taking in the steroids, you've also been open about some other treatments that you've been doing.
Yeah, and right after the day after Thanksgiving, after I went back in because I was suffering from some chest pains, and so they wanted to rule out that it wasn't anything cardio. I went in and did what they call a BAM infusion. It's also a Regeneron infusion. Basically, what it is synthesize antibodies that are from original antibodies from patients that have had COVID. They donated plasma, and then they've created kind of a synthetic version of it. So it's about a 2-hour process where they pump that into your body to basically to bolster up or to give you some antibodies while your body is already starting to generate those if they can.
Interesting. So COVID is everywhere. We know that. We're all trying to be careful. I mean, you did the virtual marathon because you weren't taking part, in large group activities. Any idea where you came into contact with the virus?
I have no idea. The best analogy I can give you, Lisa, is this: is imagine going out in the morning, driving your car, and if you're only going to use your brakes as your only method to protect yourself, you're bound to get into an accident, correct? So I always tell my kids, we need to be defensive drivers. That means not only just wearing a mask, because you're going to get people that are going to say, don't wear a mask. Wear a mask, sanitize, and do all the things that you need to do, social distance. But eventually that virus is going to come into your household. It's going to cross your threshold, and then monitor your symptoms. Find out what you can do. Know that it's not your normal seasonal flu. Get in and get tested. Take care of yourself. Whatever it is that you need to do to take care of yourself and your family. I've got 4 in my family that tested positive, and we're all over the charts in terms of our reaction to it. Mine's obviously the worst. Yeah.
Do you mind sharing how your other family members are doing? I mean, it does make sense. Everyone's body reacts differently.
My one daughter is now back in school at Shanley, and she's just, hers is fatigue but playing basketball back in it. My oldest son is tested positive and no symptoms at all.
Wow.
And then I have my wife who has fatigue and a cough, but that's it, and she's on the recovery. And then I have 2 other children in the household that have tested negative twice now.
Wow.
So like I said, it's indiscriminate. And that's what the news is not reporting. And they can't, because it's all over the place. This science is developing. It's unfolding right before our very eyes. So the best suggestion, and the reason that I wanted to come and talk to all of you, is to tell your audience is to monitor yourself. Take care of yourself. Address those symptoms. Get in and get tested. Do whatever it is you can so you can stay out of the hospital, so we're not taxing our wonderful healthcare system. Those people are angels, and they are exhausted, so that we can get to those vaccines. They're coming in the spring. They are.
That is good news. It's good news. We can't get here soon enough. Lee, it's so great to visit with you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate it. And we'll follow up with you, hopefully, when you're back at it again.
Thanks, Lisa.
We'll be right back here on North Dakota Today.